Joining us now is North Dakota Republican Senator Kevin Cramer. Senator, thank you so much for your time tonight. Walk us through the arguments that you've heard the past few days. Your colleague, Senator Cassidy, of course, was swayed enough to change his vote on the constitutionality of the trial. Were you moved by the new videos and emotional blow-by-blow of what happened?
You know, interesting point, because I wasn't overly moved by that in terms of conviction verdict. I was moved by it because, of course, I witnessed it. And I think that was perhaps one of the bigger challenges the managers had, is that they were trying to convince people how bad the events of January 6th were, people who'd lived through it like they did. And so it was moving, but I don't think it was, at least for me personally, I don't think it was compelling to the argument that the president is culpable for it. That's a separate matter, but yeah, I mean, certainly, and I have to compliment, by the way, the managers. I think they were far better than the managers were a year ago in the previous impeachment effort. I think the manager, Raskin, was particularly effective. Obviously, a very bright guy. I was thinking, gee, I'd like to take a class from him. I thought some of the others that were good included certainly Neguse from Colorado. I thought he was very good in his presentation. Plaskett from the Virgin Islands. So some of these people I served with in the House, of course, previously. So they did as good a job, I think, as they could in presenting the case. They certainly had a lot of nice, video and well edited and those kinds of things. But again, I think it was a difficult challenge for them to convince us while we were also witnesses.
To that point, the idea of the definition of inciting, meaning to urge on or to stir up, what kind of evidence could they have possibly presented? What would it have taken? Because, the idea that they're suggesting as well, not only did he maybe incite it, but that he didn't try and stop it. So he didn't call in the National Guard while lives were at risk, or while he sent the tweet when he knew that the rioters had actually breached the Capitol, he was still then talking about the lack of courage from Mike Pence. So in your estimation, what would it have taken?
Yeah, so it's a great point, because I think one of the challenges that they had was the timelines and things that they were presenting, thinking about things in real time as we were living them out. It wasn't difficult to imagine that the president was, doing and thinking one thing while these other things were happening, even on TV, but down the street, and I think that a couple of things that come to mind. For one thing, I think Mr. Neguse in his closing arguments asked a very important question. Was this foreseeable? And I think he thought that for everybody in the room that the answer would be yes. And I thought he was an answer that wasn't very effective for them, because I don't think it was foreseeable. I think when you look at the whole, the wholeness of President Trump's 4 years, his rhetoric, his rallies, the use of words, nobody foresaw, he certainly didn't foresee that there would be violence as a part of it. And so I think that's going to be hard for them. The other fact is that they haven't even used, the defense no doubt will, but that's the actual call to action in his speech itself, which was go and peacefully protest. So if he'd have said go and not fight like hell, but go and break into the Capitol, smash your way in and try to do harm to people, that would have been, obviously more culpable.
Well, still, he did use words like fight, 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 but I'll move on from there. The Senate, as you know, voted 56-44 that the trial was constitutional. In your view, is it your obligation and that of your colleagues at this point to vote the case on the merits of the facts? The House impeachment managers closed with the argument that in a court of law, if a constitutionality argument is dismissed by a judge, each side has to then move forward, and the jury or judge has to then consider the case. They can't go back and say, well, we didn't view the trial as constitutional.
So herein lies what I think is going to be an interesting question. It's going to be different perhaps for individuals, various individuals, because I struggled with it myself, quite honestly, Lindsay. And I think for me, I have to conclude that the Senate, while I was on the, on the 44 end, the minority end, the Senate in governing itself and that's somewhat unique. Obviously, juries don't necessarily govern themselves, but the Senate governs itself in the sense that it determines its own constitutionality or jurisdiction. The Senate said by that vote of 644 yes, it is. And I think I honor that, I guess. At first, I was thinking maybe a lack of constitutionality in my own mind was reason enough to vote to acquit, but I wasn't expecting either that the hill for the managers to climb was going to be all that easy to climb. So I guess the short answer to that long one is, yeah, I do think that we're obligated to hear the facts and to judge it on its merits, not on the constitutional question, which we already answered in the affirmative.
Now, if this trial had been taking place while former President Trump were still in office, do you think that you would vote to convict then, or perhaps might consider that more likely?
I don't think I would consider it more likely because of the answer I just gave you. I think that, clearly if he was still president, there wouldn't have been a constitutional jurisdictional question for the United States Senate. And at that point, we would be dealing with the facts, on the first day rather than on the second day. So even at that, they would have to demonstrate a level of culpability that, I think would meet the standard for impeachment.
You've called this week the, quote, stupidest week in the Senate, and for many members of Congress, staffers, media members who were there January 6th this week has likely been emotionally traumatizing. In your view, if this week was not necessary, what measure of accountability do you think that the former president should face for his role for the events of January 6th?
Interesting point, because there's no question that his rhetoric was reckless. I was disappointed, frankly. I watched the speech as it was happening. I was disappointed, particularly in the things he was saying about the vice president, who's been so loyal, and so loyal not only to President Trump, but loyal to the Constitution. And I just thought that was really unfortunate and uncalled for. And for that, that recklessness, had Democrats tried something different, whether it's censure, I guess is the word that they like to use, or some sort of an admonishment, I'd have probably been open to something like that. Certainly, I've been quite public about my disappointment in the speech and the rally and whatnot. But at this point, they chose this other route, and I think it's pretty difficult now to ramp that back. But we'll see what happens tomorrow, and then the next day. And if there's not an impeachment, here's what I would think. And I would think that if they feel strongly about their case, or if some other federal prosecutors feel strongly about the case, they'll bring charges against the former president and try him with a jury of his peers and see if they can get a conviction that way.
Senator Cramer, we thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.